Welcome back to Sunday Supplement. Let's talk Newcastle United now, who began life without Alexander Isak with a 1-0 win over Wolves. The Mail on Sunday, their headline is "Who Needs Isak?" with Toon's new hero, Voltemada, feels the fans' love on Dream debut. Charlotte, it's been, shall we say, an eventful summer. Some might call it a traumatic one if you're a Newcastle United fan, but a huge win and a much-needed one.
Yeah, I think, like you say, much needed. It was one that they just needed to get over the line, especially against a Wolves side who are struggling, not just for goals, but obviously for points. They've not managed to pick up a single point yet. But when you spend £65 million on a new forward, especially to replace someone who's been so prolific, for him to get off the mark in his first start is obviously hugely important. And I think I've read a lot about him in terms of what sort of profile player he is, and a lot of people who've watched him over his career have said he's not a natural number 9. Well, that sort of goal looked like he was, and for, as you can see there, headed straight in the back, off the back of a cross. So for him to be able to be building them relationships as well with the other players in the team so early on in his tenure is great. And yeah, there was lots of promising signs. I think his hold-up play was really impressive as well. So yeah, for him to be able to get off the mark in his first game, get the love from the fans as well, and the inevitability was who needs Isak as soon as he scored that goal, wasn't it? So yeah, it'd be interesting to see how he gets on going forward. Yeah,
everyone has been reading up about Nick Voltemada. Craig Hope has summed it up very nicely in his piece, Riyadh. And so as Voltemada made way on 65 minutes as the score of what would prove to be the game's only goal, the choir in the stands took to their feet in worship. So much for the perm-haired, mustachioed Voltemada having the look of a cult hero, Rudy Voller on stilts. This was mass appreciation. There's no better way to start off your career, especially when you're replacing someone like Alexander Isak, is there?
Rudy Voller on stilts is the thing I've enjoyed reading most this morning. Look, Craig's, you know, I don't think anyone's closer in their coverage of a club than Craig is at Newcastle, and he, you know, he was impressed by what he saw yesterday. I think it's going to be a huge change for Newcastle losing, huge change, but also stylistically to what Charlotte's saying. It's you're going from a player who's all dynamic movement. There's a certain elegance about the way he plays, and even just on the visual 6'6" target man, it's a very different thing. But I think that can really work for them with some of the players they've got. You know, holding up the ball, you've got the speed coming in around the sides, whether that's going to be Anthony Gordon. Elanga's the player I want to see bed in there. I thought he was fantastic at Forest. It's obviously been a slightly slow start for him, but I think there's an enormous amount of potential in that signing. Murphy as well is, you know, they've got options that can really bring the best out, or rather he can bring the best out of them. I think you're never going to be able to replace Isak's goals, and I think if you go through his record, we haven't seen that yet from him. So it's very early to get excited. But look, he's 23 years old. He's turned up. He's got a goal. You know, it's moving in the right direction. But you're never going to replace Isak, are you? Realistically, you're talking about probably one of the best strikers in the world. I suppose the one thing to say on that, to be fair, is like Isak was maybe seen at a similar level to Voltemada when he first signed for Newcastle. I think you'd seen people spoke about how he had a lot of potential, but that potential still hadn't been delivered yet. His goal record actually wasn't brilliant when he first signed for Newcastle. And like a few kind of wealthy clubs, we're thinking about Arsenal being one of them, that didn't actually move for Isak at that point. And I think it's interesting with Voltemada as well, because Philippe Lam did a column in The Guardian this week, and Lam, I think it's best to say, he's usually judicious in his opinions, or doesn't necessarily go strong. And with this one, I was actually struck by, he was talking about how versus a guarantee, he said there's a lot of risks to Voltemada, which I was surprised at, actually. So in that kind of context, when there is doubt, you can't really have a better start in both literal terms and in terms of kind of potential future meaning and what it does for the player to score on your debut like that. Because suddenly, I suppose, it just immediately makes any sort of debate or noise go away.
It takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Yeah.
The fee as well, because if you look at forwards who've been brought in the Premier League and the fee is high, all the pressure is on them. When are they going to get their first goal? And as the games tick on and they haven't got it, especially for a young player as well, coming to a new league, coming to a new country, that pressure would continue to build, and you don't know how that's going to affect them. So for him to immediately end that discussion and to get that goal on his debut should do wonders for him, really.
Well, I understand what you're saying about Isak coming over and having that sort of similar ratio or whatever, but I think you could always see on the eye that Isak was going to be a dynamic, explosive player. You could actually see the finishing, whether or not it was being carried out in the statistics or not. I think with Voltemada, it's, for me, personally looking at it, I don't see the same attacking talents as I see in Isak, which isn't a criticism.
They're different players, aren't they?
They're different players, and Isak is very definitely one of the best strikers in the world. I mean, even the goal yesterday, headed goal, those aren't his forte. We'd not automatically, perhaps lazily, look at a sort of guy who's 6'6" and be like, oh, he's going to be amazing in the air, isn't he? And it's not obviously always that way.
He's got a good head for a big man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, life after Isak has begun for Newcastle United. Life with Isak is about to begin for Liverpool. They travel to Burnley today on Super Sunday. Delighted to say James Pearce, Liverpool reporter for The Athletic, joins us now. James, very good morning to you. Look, Alexander Isak going to Liverpool, you can never have too many good players, but, I mean, you've obviously looked at this deal and looked at the rest of Liverpool's transfer window. How does he actually fit in, and who misses out, if anyone?
Good morning. Yeah, I think the determination to get Isak stems from a desire to try and ensure that Liverpool this season are able to last the pace both domestically and in the Champions League. Because if you think back to Slot's first season, they ran away with the Premier League title, but there was very little rotation. He had a kind of core 13, 14 players that he placed a huge amount of trust in. And then the impact of that was probably come March time, they ran out of gas. You think of that week when they go out of the Champions League to PSG and then lose the Carabao Cup final to Newcastle. So this is about, this fits in with the strategy of having more options, more depth, being able to rotate without the quality dipping.
Miguel, it's that word again, isn't it? Depth. Have Liverpool basically achieved that with this signing in their window?
Certainly up front. I mean, I suppose what I was thinking of as you were saying that, James, I mean, before you came on, we were discussing how basically Arsenal have, rather than go for someone like Isak, they've gone for this strength and depth across the squad, whereas Liverpool feels much more focused. But do you worry at all about maybe like the fact they didn't get Guehi?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, I must admit, when there was that debate raging in that last week of the window of, what should be the priority? Is it Isak? Is it Guehi? And I always felt it was Isak, because I think when you look at what Liverpool have lost out of that forward line, with the departures of Luis Diaz, who was, just had his best season for the club, Darwin Núñez, all parties were ready to draw a line under that, and of course the tragic loss of Diogo Jota. I think then when you only replace them with Hugo Ekitike and Florian Wirtz, it was a necessity to get in another attacker. I think defensively, I think I don't worry about it. I think, yes, there's a huge kind of emphasis on Konate staying fit. And of course, Van Dijk, at the moment, he has started the season at, in unbelievable form. No one better around. And then, of course, they need to keep Joe Gomez fit. But they also, we haven't seen Giovanni Leone yet. Liverpool have got massive hopes for him. They regarded that as a big coup. That £29 million deal they struck with Parma. A lot of other top Italian clubs were in for him as well. And, and also Slot has pointed to the fact that, Endo can play at centre half on occasions. So I think Guehi would have been kind of like the icing on the cake, really, rather than an absolute necessity in this window.
James, just very quickly, look, it's a 100% winning record so far in the Premier League for Liverpool, 9 points from 9, and yet many have said that they haven't really hit their straps yet. Is that one of those, it's a positive thing, or maybe underlying reasons perhaps to be a little bit worried moving forward?
No, I think it was to be expected. I think when you have the amount of change that's gone on at Liverpool this summer, I think it would have been very strange if they'd suddenly flown out the blocks and everything had clicked. I think that what we've seen so far, it's been a bit disjointed. Probably the first two games were far too open for Arne Slot's liking. You think of how easy they were exposed, especially on the counter-attack against Bournemouth, and then bullied a little bit up at Newcastle. But those were pretty extreme circumstances with the atmosphere on Tyneside that night. And I felt the Arsenal game before the international break was a big step forward in terms of defensively, much more solid, much more compact, limited Arsenal to very few chances. Just didn't quite create, much themselves. And obviously, in the end, the game was decided by a moment of brilliance from Szoboszlai. So it's about getting that balance right, isn't it? But I think, I think the fact that they got 9 points out of 9, having not clicked yet, is a huge positive in terms of going ahead. Because I think when they do click, it's going to be incredibly difficult to stop them.
James, I think when I look at Liverpool, I think beyond just the you know, in relative terms, the triviality of transfer dealings. I think after everything that happened in the summer and like you mentioned there, the tragedy of Diogo Jota, it actually feels incredible to me that they're performing this well, and I think it's going to become. It's an ongoing thought, I suppose, throughout the season as well about whether or not this is going to. Whether or not are we going to see an impact on it, because it'd be only human for these guys to react at some point to it. But so far, it's looked incredible. I'm amazed that they've been able to be this effective.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's only, what is it, just over 2 months since there were those incredibly poignant scenes at Preston when Liverpool played their opening pre-season friendly, and there was 6-7 minutes of after the final whistle, the Diogo song being chanted by the Liverpool supporters and the players and staff standing there and applauding, and that day it just felt like an achievement for Liverpool to even get back to playing again, having dealt with such the unimaginable loss of not just a colleague but a much loved friend as well. So yeah, I think it's wrong to overlook that in terms of, and you have to bear that in mind throughout the season. You only had to look at Mo Salah after the opening night of the Premier League season against Bournemouth. This is a group of players and a group of staff that are still grieving. So yeah, I think that again, you have to kind of take your hat off to them. The fact that with all of that going on, they've been able to make this start to the season and to win games. And the message from Arne Slot right from the aftermath of that tragedy was it was kind of do it like Diogo. They said his message to the players was Diogo was such a genuine, down to earth guy that speak up, to tell us how you feel. There's no pressure on anyone. If you don't feel up to it today, then that's absolutely fine. And it's certainly brought everyone together. And yeah, I think it's remarkable in those circumstances that they've been able to make such a fine start.
James Pearce, Liverpool reporter for The Athletic, thanks for your time this morning on Sunday Supplement.